Hello, I am Naomi Williams, the Chief Musical Officer of Good Vibrations Voice Studio. My pronouns are she and her. I'm here in Mohkinstsis, Calgary, Mohkinstsis.
I'm Rebekah Brandenburg. This is my fifth year at the studio, or I guess I'm entering my sixth. I just finished my fifth. I am on Tsutsuna territory. I live in Redwood Meadows, which is incredible because it has a joint stewardship agreement, which is really one of a kind. We truly live on Indigenous land, recognized as Indigenous land.
We've done this once before. Do you remember? I had all these questions, but what's it like graduating in a pandemic? And you were, well, I couldn't really tell you what it's not like to graduate in a pandemic. Oh man, touche.
It was the first year too, so it was new to everyone. And there are worse things in the world than not getting to walk the stage at a high school graduation. Neither of my parents walked the stage, and so I just felt like I was carrying on that legacy.
I'm interviewing you this time because now you are a university grad and a 5-year milestone student. What university did you attend and with what degree?
I just graduated from the University of Calgary with a Bachelor of Arts with distinction in sociology, and then I minored in religious studies.
You enjoyed your time at U of C, I'm guessing?
I did. I had a really lovely privilege because my mom's all about learning where I got to go to school to learn. I didn't have to go from point A to point B, and so I got to spend the last 4 years truly diving into social issues and social problems, explore the world from a different lens of my own, and get to spend 4 years just learning the world and how it works and just seeing different opinions from my own and letting curiosity lead.
I believe that university is the ramp to adulthood. Do you believe that?
No, I think university is a really great place to learn and grow, but I don't think you automatically become an adult with a degree.
What was it like this year as you started navigating your way from university into the next phase of life?
Good, I think. I'm going to spend this next year kind of figure out what I want to do, what I want to be. I didn't take a gap year when I graduated high school because I didn't really feel like there was a point. I'm kind of taking a gap year now, and so I'll kind of just situate what life's going to be. I'm really thankful that my family's supportive of my existence, and so I don't really feel rushed to figure everything out. I'm excited to see where it's going to take me, but it's still a lot of open road. I don't really have a lot of definitive ends yet.
So are you going to be taking your voice lessons online then from like fantastical places?
No, I'm still planning to be here. I was just going to more spend the year like researching different programs and figuring out a life map. Have dinner with my grandparents every week, so maybe up that to twice a week.
What was your favorite class and professor?
Well, Bastida is probably my favorite professor. That man took me through social statistics, and without him, I'm not sure I would have done that well in that class. A little too much math for me, but it's good to know. It's good to understand.
When were you taking stats?
Year 3, so last year.
That explains a few things about your stress level.
Statistics was a class and a half. Yeah, so shout out to Christina, probably my favorite prof, but I also really like Klosterman and Banerjee. Shout out to those two women. There's a lot of classes that I really liked. I really like sociology and religious studies. My gender, sex, and religion class was a lot of fun, getting to explore medieval Christianity with a different lens in a more gender fluid way. And then my media sociology class was really fun. I did an entire paper on consumptions and how AI is going to affect the music industry.
My brain is growing just from listening to you talk. Now we're going to talk about your singing lessons. I know you've known me for a while and I taught you in other ways, but as a private voice instructor, what comes to mind right away as a memorable teaching moment?
Where I feel like you've taught me something, or I think there's mutual learning.
You can tell me both.
I don't really know if there's like a specific memorable teaching moment, but I think a lot of how we've improved with our communication style, things that we could have done 3 years ago that would end with one of us crying in frustration, we can no longer do the same sort of way because we've learned a better communication style for us. We've both grown in that relationship, when to know when to stop, or when you're like, Rebekah, you just gotta stop, or when I'm like, I need to move on. I feel like we're a lot better at that now.
And that is probably more valuable to both of us than any singing we've been doing. I'm really glad you talked about this. I think this happens a lot in voice lessons. It's taken a good 3 to 4 years for us to get to that place. At some point, you get to a sticky spot in a person. There's a thing that they know they are not doing well or that they want to improve, but they just don't know how. And it's tricky to go there voluntarily again and again and again to touch on that icky hurt spot. Am I making sense, Rebekah? How would you describe it? it.
No, I get what you mean. I feel like there's moments of frustration in people's abilities, and it takes a second for a partnership to figure out when to push and when to pull back, or how to address things. If you have to trick the human, if you have to be honest up the bat. And by tricking, I more mean like fun, random little games. Let's do weird voices, like tricking to get out of that headspace, not a malicious trick.
By tricking you, it's a redirect.
Yeah.
There are real feelings and real bodily reactions that we have to work through, but it takes some time.
I think it's just important for all of us to understand that we're all individual people. We have different learning styles, we have different listening styles. And so sometimes it just takes some time to figure out what's the best way to communicate for you and that other human. Because sometimes how you communicate with one person is not as effective as how you communicate with another. The process of trial and error. And as long as you just kind of stay open and you forgive and you're just like, okay, let's keep going, you'll eventually find the groove that works for you.
And now we're singing the crap out of things.
Yeah, no, we've been improving.
Let's switch gears. What has been your favorite song that you have sung in your lessons?
I still really like Sonia Alone. I know it's been a bit, but I really love doing that song. That was a moment for me of realization of, oh, maybe I can sing a little better than I think I have. I think it really pushed me as like an artist and as a singer in the studio, and I think it kind of set a lot of standards for how I wanted to progress moving forward.
So tell me about your favorite performance.
I don't know, I feel like the last one was pretty challenging. I might be recency bias. That was the result of us doing this for the last 5 years. That one was pretty cool.
Favorite performance of someone else in the studio?
I just really loved the Zoom performances. I don't know why, but like I just have memories of like Ali and Jeff when they're doing the studio performances. And I remember sitting on the couch displayed on the big screen because I was like screen mirroring and writing my comments, always being like, Ali has such a great vibe in all of these. And then being like, Jeff always chooses the right song. It's always different, but it's somehow always the right song. I think there's also something about just being able to see someone's space. I always think that's really cool too, is seeing the space that someone chooses. There's another layer of authenticity in the Zoom performances, especially because there's always like frustration or the like true performance of a recital feelings kind of went out of the way because either StreamYard or Zoom would start acting up or you'd be trying to figure out what's going on. Sometimes someone's mic or camera would go on and I just felt like it always kept me on my toes.
My first Zoom recital though was hilarious.
Yeah, I genuinely enjoyed myself. I thought it was perfect in all the right ways because of it. It's just something so wholesome because I think we all were trying to figure it out together that I don't think any other recital experience will live up to. Because all the recitals feel like other recitals, but that was like a true first for me. And I think it was a first for most people.
Anything else? Anybody else you want to shout out?
Honestly, I'm going to shout out Aurora. I had a blast at that performance. I had a blast. I was shining my light. I was dancing in my seat. I was in it. I was like, let's go.
How do you think taking voice lessons has impacted you positively outside of the voice studio?
It's been my creative outlet from a highly academic life. That's always needed. School's important, life's important, but I also really believe creativity is important. Finding space to let myself still be curious, but in a non-academic sense. I think it was always just kind of a nice little step away from the world or understanding that there's more than just one thing in the world.
What does a non-academic space mean to you?
Well, I was in a socials program, so a humanities program. So most of my life was a lot of reading research papers and writing research papers. It's a fun world to explore. They're just interesting at that moment in time. There's also something to be said about not getting fully lost in that space. Academics are what I consider one of the most acceptable cults in the world, where it's this little system where you're just trapped in it with a certain structure that you live in. And so sometimes it's still really good to go back to the ground. Academics, I truly believe in. I believe in higher education. I believe that is a form of knowledge. It is not the only form of knowledge. It's not the most grounding thing. And so this keeps me grounded.
Literally as well as figuratively, your brain is going, oh, right, I'm a part of a body. So as a 5-year student, you've definitely put a commitment and you're coming back next year. So what is it about the studio that makes you want to keep making the investment in yourself?
I think the culture's nice. For me, I didn't want it to be this stressful professional environment. I wanted it to be more of a fun community. I don't really need the A, B, C, D, E, F. This was also always like a relief to have that kind of flexibility where if we need to be serious, we can be serious, but at the same time, we can just do vocal exercises or doing weird things that makes us look idiotic in the mirror. I think that's really valuable. And then also at this point, I think you and I work well together. Beyond the studio itself, like I feel like we've worked well together, and I'm not sure I'd want to have to break in a new voice teacher.
I have been thoroughly broken in. It is true.
And you broke me in. We've got to get a little rapport going.
Yeah.
Having to get rid of that would just be a disservice because I think we kind of have an understanding.
I think it's that. A lot of our lessons became the outcome is to just explore something. We get better singing. And I think you were a perfect example of that. A
Yeah.
big reason why you couldn't make the sounds you wanted to make was your perfectionist brain was like, this isn't good enough.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of a reframing because we all know that I'm really into objectives. I love objective based learning. And the objective this year was to take a lot more relaxed of an approach. And that within itself was an attainable objective. And I still had my objective based accomplishment, but in a different way. At that point, I was in my fourth year of school, and there is something to be said about finding things when you least expect it. When you only go for an outcome or an expectation based, you never are actually fully curious because you can't see it from every angle. You're seeing it from one vision line. You have to know yourself and you have to know your biases. And I know that me as a perfectionist, I tend to at times be focused on one sole goal and miss the growth and opportunity that can happen in the journey. I didn't want to have that perspective going in. I'm going to focus on school. Let's just take a relaxed approach. So I think we accomplished that objective. There's something to be said about understanding that we can only see things a certain way. And that's why we have a voice teacher. And that's because you can see something a different way than I can. And that's kind of the beauty of learning and curiosity. If we approach those games in accepting and engaging way, and there's a lot to be learned, even if it doesn't really feel like it's gonna go anywhere at the time. You learn, and then next thing you know, you're belting.
What's an example of one of these games or the trickery?
The first was the tongue one.
What tongue one? Tell me.
The one where it was like where we had to raise it in the back of the mouth more, of like the weird jaw dropping tongue one where you're like making me just move the tongue. Yeah, the Gila, yeah.
Shout out to Idri Means
Yeah.
Weekly, taught me that, and it is an invaluable exercise. When we had to pin you down at the end of the year, in the sense of like, okay, we have to pick a performance song, and we've been very kind of nebulous and exploring things. At the end here, just like you had to pick something. How did you do that?
That's a great question. At that point, we were discussing doing songs that required more of a belt, and we had done some Waitress before, and I kept saying no to She Used to Be Mine because I was like, that song's been done 80,000 times, and it is the song of that show. Like, why? Like, I was like, no. But we'd done some Waitress up to that point, and we were trying to pinpoint songs we felt like had a good solid belt in them to continue the work we'd been doing for the month and a half before, the 2 months before that. And so we created a short list of songs, and I think I was just like, know what, we're just gonna do the musical theater song. I didn't do Broad May, so I was like, you know what, no, we'll just do She Used to Be Mine. It kind of stemmed from a place of knowing that what we wanted to do within the song for the final performance, because we discussed it and we're like, we're gonna decide to do a song that's gonna require a belt to try to explore that in a performance setting. And I ended up going with that one mainly because I was like, you know what, no, we'll just conquer that one. Then I can say I've done it.
Now, what are you waiting for? Well, congratulations on awesome performance, and I'm so excited to be working with you next year. It may not be completely broken in yet, but we have taken the rough edges out. I think it's awesome that we talked about that, because both people have to be willing to be like, all right, what do I need to change? And then also just be open to listening to what the other person needs as well. So that's the deep work. Have a great evening.
I'm gonna go read.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for coming.